Hi, welcome again. Today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic. It's related to performance, and that's the shader complexity. This is a question that I got from Discord, and a couple of people have asked me what's going on. Right now you're looking at the default map comes with OpenLand. So it's a very simple landscape. Then I can enable the shader complexity by going lit, optimization view modes, and we have shader complexity. Right now you will see like a screen like this. Based on this view, it's bad. So it's close to like pink and white, and that's quite bad in terms of this view. But actually it's not a problem. So this is a problem for sure if you're targeting for mobile and maybe for VR games, but generally speaking for a PC game and console game, this is just fine. And let me prove you why it doesn't really matter. So this shader complexity is a vanity metric, so you should not rely on that, only on that. So that's my whole point. And another thing is, I actually didn't even see this problem. It's not a problem until recently someone mentioned on my Discord. And the reason is I'm not worrying about this feature. I'm not using shader complexity at all. So I'm using other performance metrics. I have a YouTube series on how to do performance monitoring and performance profiling in Unreal Engine, and check the description below to have a look at that. If someone is comparing with early version of OpenLand with the latest version, early is just fine based on this metric. And the reason why this is sort of bad because we have added some features to actually work with our new Megascan texture widget. For example, I can show you that. We have a widget over here, and I can run this widget. So basically with that one, I can select any layer and I can select any Megascan texture. I can simply assign them. I can do change colors, and there are a lot of things we have there. So in order to work with that, we have to introduce some features, and that's why it looks bad, but actually it's not that bad. And let me show you. Now I'm going to enable some stats. I'm going to type stat FPS, and also I'm going to type stat unit. Right now I'm using RTX 2060, quite entry-level GPU. I have a RTX 3080 as well, and the comparison is almost the same. I mean, like the frame rate numbers are increased, but the outcome is the same. Right now, let me play my game as is right now. Shader complexity is quite worst. Right, let me go to the full screen mode. Right now, we are getting about like 50 frames a second. So as you can see, we are having like 17 milliseconds per frame. And mostly it's on the GPU. My CPU and game thread is quite fine, so we don't have bottleneck over there. GPU we spend around like 17 to 18 milliseconds. All right, so that's how we got these 55-60 frames per second. Earlier, as we talk about, my shader complexity is quite worse, and here's how I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna select my landscape, go to the landscape material. I'm gonna search for basic. So we have a pretty basic material over here. I like this one. And let me wait a couple of minutes to compile stuff. All right, now it's ready, and I can show you the shader complexity. Alt 8. Now it looks super green, and this is the ideal if you're just looking at this metric. All right, I'm gonna go to the normal mode, and then I'm gonna play my game. Go to the full screen mode. So I'm getting around like 60 frames per second, and my millisecond amount is around like 15 millisecond for the GPU, and earlier it's about 70. So there's a 2 millisecond drop, and so that's normal. Like, so now this is a simple plain material. It doesn't do anything, but our material we do texture variation, and there are a lot of things going on. But spending 2 milliseconds for that one is reasonable. My point is, if you're targeting for a PC game, so having a green and white for the shader complexity, it doesn't make any sense. Like it's just fine. Just look at the frame rate numbers, and it's totally fine. All right, now let's get back to OpenLand again. But if you really want to get that 2 millisecond back, and there's a way to do that, that's using the RVTs. And here I'm not going to talk about the full workflow of how to enable RVT. I have a separate video on that, and just check the description below on how to do that. So I'm gonna go quick and try to enable RVT. Now my project is configured with RVT. Then I can go to my landscape, open my landscape material. In OpenLand, we have a feature called RVT cache. So I can enable that and save this one. Now it will take some time to compile. All right, now let me enable the shader complexity again, Alt 8. It's not super green over here, but it's fine according to this view. So let me play my game, go to full screen mode, Now I'm getting around 60 frames per second, and my millisecond count is about 15 milliseconds. And if you're really worrying about that 1 to 2 millisecond drop with using RVTs, you can gain that better. RVT has its own uses and it also has its own problems. So to use RVT or not, it's depending on certain factors. But of course, if you want to gain that performance back, and there's a way to do that. Yeah. Right now we know shader complexity has some impact, but it's not that quite huge impact in your game. And we know with RVTs we can gain back some of those performance back, and we know about that. All right, let me show you something quite interesting. Right now I'm gonna remove the RVT and get rid of the RVT cache. So now we are back to the default landscape. So my landscape, go to the landscape material, go search for RVT, and I'm gonna disable the RVT cache. So we are back to the default state, right? And if you talk about the shader complexity, yeah, it's pink and white. Okay, right, then I'm gonna enable grass. I have already configured this project with grass using one grass. Here with our material instance, we have an interesting parameter called enable grass. I'm gonna set that to 1. Now we have grass on our map. And now I'm gonna look at my shader complexity, Alt 8, and now it's not that bad, right? So earlier this area is white, now it's green because of this grass. Right now let's go to my game, Alt P, and go to full screen, and let me show you what's going on here. Now my frame rate is about like 14 frames per second. Although my shader complexity is quite improved, my frame rate drops. And the reason is shader complexity is just one metric. Then there are a lot of things that involve the performance of your game. For example, here my GPU is spending about 80 milliseconds. Okay, that's quite high. So I can type stat GPU. I can see what's going on over here. So if you look at that, you can see on here shadow depth is spending around 60 milliseconds. So that's the main culprit over here. And if you look at my previous videos, this is because of the virtual shadow maps in Unreal Engine 5. So I can disable virtual shadow maps, edit, project settings, and search for and I'm going to search for shadow maps. Then I'm going to select that to default shadow maps, not the virtual shadow maps. I'm going to close this. I'm going to play my game again, go to full screen mode. Now you can see shadow depth is about 5 milliseconds. Still this grass, still when we enable grass, there's some frame drops, but you can see the idea. So my point is not about grass and how to improve performance, but here the shader complexity is just one metric, and there are some other factors involved in the actual performance. So if you're doing some performance profiling or looking at some product, just don't look at the shader complexity, only the shader complexity. Your ideal benchmark is the frame rate and the millisecond value, and that's how you can start optimizing. In some case, shader complexity has a use. For example, if you're targeting for a mobile, definitely you need to improve on all the areas. So that's my point overall. Shader complexity is a vanity metric. Just don't look at only that. Right now, I think you have a good understanding of shader complexity and why OpenLand's default material looks bad in shader complexity, but it's not that a big deal at the end. All right, see you soon with something interesting. Bye.